Machine learnable moves are a staple of the Pokemon series. There have been several varieties over the years, but technical machines are the most prominent. TMs have appeared in nearly every main series game, and they're the primary way to expand Pokemon's move pools. What's up, fellas? My name is Matt, and today Elias and I are going to talk about how we think Game Freak should handle TMs. Alright, let's get started.
What's up? I'm Elias, and we're going to start with the history of machine moves. Generation 1 introduced TMs as well as HMs, or hidden machines, for long. These games feature 50 TMs, and there are various ways to get your hands on them. Gym leaders each give out a TM as a prize for beating them, some TMs are lying around in the overworld, and you can buy some of them at the department store. Some moves are tied to the game corner, which is less than ideal because you have to spend 83 quintillion years earning coins to afford them.
In Gen 1, TMs could only be used once before breaking. That's usually fine if you're just playing through the game, because you don't necessarily need the absolute best moves on every Pokemon. That's especially the case in Gen 1, where a humble poison type makes Lorelei and Lance completely malfunction. But if you're trying to build a competitive team, you could run into issues.
Nowadays, the vast majority of competitive Gen 1 is played on battle simulators. But let's say you're about to meet up with a friend and duke it out on Game Boys, because you're from the 20th century. If you want to put 2 Thunderbolt Pokemon on your team, but they don't learn the move by level up, you would need 2 Game Boys. Let's use Starmie and Chansey for this example. Actually, I don't think we should use Starmie and Chansey, I think we should use Chansey and Starmie.
Oh, you're fired. The only way to obtain a Thunderbolt TM in these games is by beating Lieutenant Surge. He gives you 1 copy of the move, and that's all you get. So if you want a second Thunderbolt, you would have to beat the first 3 gyms on 2 different save files, then teach it to each of the Pokemon you want to use. That's one of the main drawbacks of one-use TMs. They make it harder to optimize each Pokemon's moveset.
TMs remain pretty much the same in Gens 2 through 4, although the list of machine learnable moves does vary. Thunderbolt and Ice Beam are TMs in the vast majority of games, but they aren't in Gen 2. They were only available via level up and breeding in Gold and Silver, but they're teachable via Move Tutor in Crystal. Bill's dad will teach your Pokemon the moves, but only on Wednesdays and Saturdays, and only after you beat the game, and you have to get 4,000 coins from the game corner first. Wonderful, let me go spend 19 hours getting the coins and I'll be right with you. Bill's dad can also teach you Flamethrower, which didn't become a TM at all until Gen 3.
So, little peek behind the curtains. I was playing a little Balatro before we sat down to record this video.
Game of the year, by the way, game of the year.
Astrobot won.
I've never even heard of that game before in my life. You're telling me it was better than Balatro?
There are 50 TMs in Gens 1 through 3, but that number nearly doubled in Gen 4. There are 92 TMs in Diamond and Pearl, and the same list carries over to Platinum, Heart Gold, and Soul Silver. Many of them are new moves like Drain Punch, Dragon Pulse, and Brine. TMs work the same way as they always have up to this point though, so we're not going to spend too much time on these games.
Generation 5 brought about the first major change to machine moves. Starting in Pokemon Black and White, TMs are reusable. When you obtain a TM, it functions like a key item. It goes into your bag permanently, you can use it in unlimited amount of times, and you can't sell it. There are 95 TM moves to collect, asterisk, and the reusability comes in real handy. In the first 4 generations, you might have 2 Pokemon on your team that know the same move, but that became way more common in Black and White.
The Pokemon World Championships were TCG events for a while, but the Video Game Championships, or VGC for short, also became a main event in 2009, towards the end of Gen 4. VGC is a double battle format, which makes Protect an absolutely incredible move. It blocks moves that target the user for the turn, which has a metric ton of use cases in doubles.
Are you ready for the best sound in the world?
You've got a Red Bull, don't you?
Yes.
You flippin' bet.
Yes, I do. Sugar-free Winter Edition Red Bull. Most VGC teams have multiple Protect users, so the TM being reusable in Gen 5 is pretty convenient. That saves time and in-game money when you're building your team. Is it a lot of time or money? Nope, especially since most previous games had Protect in the department store. But it's something. But there are other cases where reusable TMs make things way easier.
We are recording this video the day before Elias's birthday.
Yay.
He's old! VGC players don't just pick one team and stick with it for the whole generation. They'll play around with a bunch of different stuff and revise things as they go. If you're not happy with how your first team is performing, or you want to try something new, you may need even more copies of some TMs. But since they don't break in Gen 5, you don't have to start an entire new save just to get the move you need again.
In Gen 4, there are several doubles relevant moves that you can only get one of per save file, like Trick Room and Rock Slide. So if you want to get a second Pokemon that knows one of these moves and they don't learn it by level up, you have to start a whole new playthrough just to get another TM. Creating VGC ready Pokemon back then was a pain in the neck, and this is just one of the many reasons why. Reusable TMs helped alleviate that problem in Gen 5, although more significant quality of life changes were made down the line.
You know, I shouldn't have said pain in the neck. I should have said pain in the stomach, because that is usually what gives you issues. I am doxing you on the internet.
That's true. My stomach gives me a lot of issues.
Unbreakable TMs are also just nice from a playthrough perspective. Let's say I'm playing through Pokemon Black, and I find the TM for X-Scissor out in the world. Most of the Steel types of the game can learn this move, but when it comes to building a playthrough team, I tend to be pretty indecisive. I might go back and forth between Excadrill and Bisharp a few times before I decide which Pokemon I want to take to the Elite Four.
Since the X-Scissor TM is reusable, you'd be able to teach it to both Pokemon with no penalty. That makes it easier to mix and match Pokemon throughout the game, until you put together a team that you're happy with. If you teach your Excadrill a TM like X-Scissor, then decide later that you don't want to use it long term, you can easily teach it to Bisharp as well. In previous games, you would need another copy of the TM, and those aren't always available.
TMs remained reusable in Gen 6 and 7, which we're big fans of. That means if you really wanted to, you could fill your X and Y team with 6 mother flippin' physical sweepers, and teach them all Swords Dance. Would I recommend such a lopsided team composition? Well, I wouldn't say no. Meanwhile, Pokemon Sun and Moon are the first main series games without hidden machines.
Speaking of my stomach giving me a lot of issues, The Outer Worlds 2 is going to come out in 2025. That makes the game roster for 2025 pretty slick. You have GTA 6 is supposed to come out, Outer Worlds 2.
What in the world does this have to do with your stomach?
HMs were field moves, and they were often required to make progress in the game. The most extreme example is Sinnoh's Victory Road, which requires 5 different HMs to complete. They were some of the most controversial aspects of earlier Pokemon games, because your team won't be at full strength much of the time. If you have 6 battle-ready Pokemon, there will be many points where you have to put one in your box and replace it with a Bibarel or Lanoon to move forward in the game.
HMs are infamous for being terrible moves. With the exception of Surf and Fly, the HMs are awful in playthrough battles. Most of the others are entirely outclassed by standard moves, or they're only really useful for their overworld function. Cough, defog, cough. In Gen 7, several former HMs became TMs instead, and no one used Rock Smash ever again, and we all lived happily ever after. The end.
I like HMs, just saying.
I'm gonna beat you to death.
In Gens 1 through 6, the list of TMs stayed the same throughout the generation, but that all changed in Gen 7. The Alola games had 100 TMs, but Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee only had 60. Not only that, but the order of the TMs was completely overhauled in the Kanto remakes. Thunderbolt is TM24 in Alola, but TM36 in Kanto. So that's a thing, I guess. Next.
Generation 8 is where machine moves started to get weird. Sword and Shield have 100 TMs the same way the Alola games did, but there are also 100 TRs, or technical records for long. In these games, TMs are reusable, but TRs break after one use. For the most part, TRs are found by completing max raid battles, or by buying them from Watt traders. You can also create TRs by combining items in the Cramomatic. Even though TRs are breakable, you can get an unlimited amount per save file, which wasn't always the case with old school TMs.
For the most part, the best machine moves in Gen 8 are TRs, including Leaf Blade, Liquidation, and Sludge Wave. Meanwhile, TMs tend to be weaker or more situational moves like Avalanche, Brick Break, and Brutal Swing. Hello Game Freak, I have 1 million questions. Number 1, why? It just feels so unnecessary to have breakable and reusable machines in the same game. Why not just have 200 of one or the other?
TRs rebooted back to the Shadow Realm and Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. TMs did make their return, but they're back to being breakable. In exchange though, it's easier to get multiple copies of the same move. NPCs that give you TMs now give you 3 copies, and gym leaders give you 5. You can also buy TMs in the Grand Underground.
Yeah, at this point, we're not sure what's going on anymore. The fact it's easier to get multiple copies of a TM is nice, but was there really a need to go back to the old system and modify it? Unbreakable TMs were a nice quality of life change, so we think it's a shame that they're gone again. But I just found a Togepi and it's holding an elixir.
That's not a held item, you're fired! TMs are single use once again in Scarlet and Violet, but there's a new method to make as many as you need. I'm gonna be honest though, I'm not a fan of it. Whenever you complete a battle with a wild Pokemon, they drop TM materials. If you go to a Pokemon Center, you can use the materials to craft new moves. As an example, if you want TM 162 Bug Buzz, you can craft it with 5 Kricketot shells, 3 Combi Honey, and 3 Venonat fangs.
The problem is that the game doesn't like to tell you how to craft these moves. Wanna craft grassy terrain? Great, all you need is Flabebe pollen, Sunkern leaves, and screw you on not telling. The game only tells you what materials you need if you found them before. If there's something missing from the recipe, you have to go find some wild Pokemon you haven't battled or caught before, and hope their material is the one you need. If you guess wrong, try again with something else. Repeat forever or until you get sick of this crap, whichever comes first. Fortunately, you can also still find TMs scattered around the world, so that's nice at least.
Even after beating the game, there will still probably be TMs you can't craft. Despite knocking out wild Pokemon and getting a bunch of materials from Penny throughout your playthrough, there's a good chance you still won't have them all. To add insult to injury, there are dozens of materials that aren't part of any recipe. There are only 2 things you can do with Ditto Goo or Plusle Fur: sell them or throw them in the item printer.
To cut a long story short, we think that unlimited use TMs are the way to go in the Pokemon series. Gen 5 got the system right in our opinion, and you know what they say. If it ain't broke, don't mess with it every 5 minutes for no reason. Matt, I don't think that's what they say.
You think I care?
Fair enough. Gen 7 removing HMs was a step in the right direction in many players' eyes, but everything after that, not so much. The weird hybrid system with TMs and TRs was unnecessary, and so was making them breakable again in BDSP. For that matter, the less said about crafting, the better.
Reusable TMs are pretty nice for standard playthroughs and competitive play, but they're also useful in other formats like solo runs. JRose11 pointed out how nice they are in his first Gen 5 challenge, Pokemon White with only a Delibird. If you really wanted to, you can customize your moveset for each individual battle, because you can easily reteach many moves via TM. That's especially the case with Delibird, because its level up moveset is barren. Our guy doesn't learn any moves past level 1, so TMs are especially crucial for a challenge like this.
At the start of the Elite Four, Delibird knew Frost Breath, which J-Rose used to beat Chantal's Golurk. Then he replaced that move with Brick Break to beat Gribbsley's Dark types. After the Elite Four, he retaught Frost Breath for the final N and Ghetsis battles. That kind of thing wouldn't be possible under the original TM system.
Previously, J-Rose played Pokemon Platinum with only a Shedinja, and the fact that TMs aren't reusable in that game restricted his moveset quite a bit. On Route 216, it's always hailing. Since Shedinja only has 1 HP and it's not an ice type, the hail would always knock it out in 1 hit. That means that any trainer battle with more than 1 Pokemon on this route is impossible, unless you change the weather with Sunny Day.
That's a funny cool strategy, but that move isn't useful for Shedinja at all in most battles. But J-Rose had to keep Sunny Day on his moveset for nearly the entire rest of the game because there's a similar roadblock in the Elite Four. Berthless Hippowdon sets up sand with its ability, so J-Rose needed to overwrite that weather to avoid perishing as well.
If TMs were reusable, his moveset would be quite a bit more flexible, because Sunny Day wouldn't be taking up a move slot for so long. He'd be able to replace it with another move for most of the late game, and only reteach Sunny Day when it was absolutely necessary. That would give him more type coverage, which would have been helpful in some battles. There are a lot of situations where reusable TMs would come in handy, so it's a shame they're not in the game anymore. Got a paper to write though. That's a later problem. It's due Wednesday.
Yeah, you can do that on Wednesday then.
Wednesday at 11:40 p.m. I'm going to barf out 5 pages of slop.
I mean, I could write a pretty good 5-page essay in
19 minutes?
Hours. Right, so you might be wondering about the asterisk from earlier. Pokemon Black and White had 95 TMs coded into the game, but one of them isn't obtainable during standard gameplay. TM95 is Snarl, which is a useful move in modern doubles formats. It's a spread move that can lower both opponents' special attack stats. Not bad, but in Gen 5, the Snarl TM is locked behind an event that never happened.
The Lock Capsule is an event-exclusive item, which first appeared in the code of Heart Gold and Soul Silver, Elias' favorite Pokemon game, by the way. In Black and White, the only copy of Snarl is inside the capsule, and you can only open it by showing it to Mr. Locke in Castelia City. But the Lock Capsule was never distributed, so the only way to get Snarl is through a different event.
There were various events in 2011 that gave you a Snarl Zoroark. Once you have one in your game, you can pass the move on to other Pokemon via breeding. That was the only way to get Snarl on Pokemon like Houndoom and Arcanine, even though it's not an egg move. Snarl was made obtainable through regular gameplay in Black and White too. Now you can get it in Lost Lorn Forest from a backpacker who's actually a Zoroark in disguise. 99% of the 32,381 user reviews in the last 30 days are positive.
Well, there's not much to dislike about it. It's cards.
Yeah, it is. Speaking of turning older, my driver's license also expires on my birthday.
Go down to the DMV. Spend your birthday in line.
I'm in Illinois. I have a New York license. Can I get it?
I genuinely don't know.
Okay, in the comments, if you know whether or not I can get a New York State driver's license renewed in a different state, perhaps specifically Illinois, tell me how, please.
Hey Elias, I am assigning you a 5-page paper. You must argue that the English language does not exist. Page 1 must be written in Arabic, page 2 must be written in Spanish, page 3 must be written in Polish with all those consonants in a row, page 4 must be written in Uzbek, page 5 must be written in a language of your choice that does not use the Latin alphabet. Good luck.
Yeah, ChatGPT, okay.
Welp, that's all we got for today. Leave a comment about Cascoon. Consider subscribing to the channel if you've been enjoying our videos. You can also support us by becoming a channel member for as low as 99 cents a month. That'll let you watch our videos early, and you'll also get to see exclusive content, like deleted scenes and Let's Plays. Shoutouts to our newest member, River, as well as all of our existing ones. We'll see you all next time. Good night, fellas. Sleep well.